Hello and welcome to Nightly Scroll. I'm Hayley, Caronia, and I just want to say we are perfectly on time tonight. I wish you all could see us behind the scenes. Andy was like, I'm going to start the clock right on time tonight, and we went off of my atomic clock over there, so it is the exact time, and we hit it right at 6 p.m. So I'm very excited for that, and thank you all for watching. You might be watching right now on X or on Facebook. And if you are, I urge you to come over and watch on Rumble, rumble.com/Hayley. We'll bring you to the Bongino Report channel. That is where you can watch Nightly Scroll in full, and you're not going to want to miss a second of tonight's show. Quick update off the top. Former Ambassador John Bolton was indicted by a grand jury earlier today on 8 counts of transmission of national defense information and 10 counts of retention of national defense information. This is what the indictment reads. From on or about April 9th, 2018 through at least on or about August 22nd, 2025, Bolton abused his position as National Security Advisor by sharing more than 1,000 pages of information about his day-to-day activities as the National Security Advisor, including information related to the national defense, which was classified up to top secret levels with 2 unauthorized individuals. Back in August, Bolton's Maryland home was raided by the FBI, and they were trying to find these classified documents that agents believed John Bolton had. And they seized a lot of technology from John Bolton's home. 2 iPhones, they received 3 computers. So they found something, and the grand jury indicted him. And, just wanted to mention, when Mar-a-Lago was raided by Biden's DOJ, John Bolton, he criticized President Trump's handling of classified documents and said that the legal process should play out. So we shall let the legal process play out. Also on tonight's show, pop star Reneé Rapp and country music singer, I won't call him a star because I've never heard of him before this, Bryan Andrews, is that his name? Bryan Andrews? Yeah, never heard of him. They have both gone viral for their anti-Trump and anti-ICE rants, and I am calling out the hypocrisy. Also, AOC and Senator Bernie Sanders teamed up for a CNN town hall last night. I'll tell you why I don't want to see their faces on my TV screen anymore. Also, Vice President J.D. Vance has commented on that GOP group chat gone wild, and Silverloch Contributor Scott Bryson will join me for tactical detail. Put your phones on Do Not Disturb. Nightly Scroll starts now. I'm going to get into, I've actually heard of her before. She has some popular songs that I do like. Okay, so she's more of a star than this other guy. But we'll start with Reneé Rapp. She was performing in Portland, Oregon, and this is what she had to say to her supporters there. Watch this.
It just happens that we time out that we're here at the same time some other people who shouldn't fucking be here are. So let's get fucking clear. Fuck ICE, fuck this administration, and fuck Trump. Let's get that out of the way. Very quickly. You are very gracious hosts. Thank you for having us.
You could barely hear what she's saying over the roaring crowd. Everyone, all the clapping seals, as I like to say, she's saying F ICE, F Trump. And, she said there are people in this city who aren't welcome here. And she's referring to ICE agents. She's referring to National Guard agents and officers who are protecting those federal buildings that are under attack by protesters on a nightly basis. And this is an artist, by the way, who certainly knows her audience, right? She's performing in Portland, Oregon. She's a gay icon. Her fans are obviously very liberal. So this is not surprising to me in the slightest. And obviously she has every right to say what she wants to say. She can be as anti-Trump and anti-ICE as she wants to be. But she and other famous stars should check their privilege to use their language. Reneé Rapp most likely lives in a very nice community, probably low crime. She can afford personal security. I'm sure she's had an escort to and from every venue that she performs at. And she certainly isn't living the same lives as people who live in high crime areas. So it's very easy to sit on your high horse and condemn the very officers that keep the public safe when you are afforded security that is a cut above the rest. Not everyone has that privilege to be protected and to feel safe. Here's what I find interesting. So we have Reneé Rapp. Now, she is a pop star. She has a lot of gay people who like her music. So, like, this kind of makes sense, right? She's playing to her audience. Now, this next guy is a country music artist, Bryan Andrews. Again, never heard of him in my life until now. And he is also railing on President Trump and ICE, and he is screaming very loudly. So he must know what he is talking about, and he must be right. Listen to this.
Oh, he's crashing out. You want to crash out? Fine, I'll fucking give you one. If we don't wake the fuck up soon, and I mean quick, fast, and in a fucking hurry, we are fucked like a football bat. We got the Department of Homeland fucking Security out here sharing hype videos of ICE agents flying in on American cities, banging in doors, jacking people out of their houses, zip tying them in the streets naked, and then carting them off in the back of U-Hauls with no warrants or due process like it's a fucking trailer to the newest Call of Duty game. And the worst part is, I gotta watch some of y'all cheer it on like you're watching a fucking football game. And then the cherry on top of it all, I gotta sit here and listen to y'all call yourselves Christians? Bullshit. You don't get to call yourself a Christian and then advocate and fucking laugh when families are torn apart outside of courthouses of people trying to come here the right ways. It makes me feel physically fucking ill to know that when people think of the loving Christ that I know, that gave his life for us, they will think of you instead. You are not Christian. You use Christianity as a shield to hide behind when you need to justify the hate that you have scolded into this world. Because if you think that I'm going to sit back and watch the America that I love to my fucking core be beaten to its fucking knees without saying a word, then you got me fucked up. And the only regret that I have is not saying something sooner. I would rather my label call me the fuck up and drop me right after posting this video and have no career at all than live in a world where what is happening right now is happening and I don't say a fucking thing like most of these artists do. So if you gotta leave, I get it.
Yeah, I would be screaming mad too if I believed everything that I saw on the internet. But screaming is not the best way to get your point across and to be taken seriously. But what I have an issue with is when people who don't do research get very angry and then they take to the internet to fearmonger and get more people angry. When Bryan Andrews, these were just clips from a larger video. This was a very long video. And Bryan Andrews referenced naked children being zip-tied by ICE agents, which has been debunked, by the way. There was a video that went viral, and part of the clips from the video were taken from another TikTok parody video. So Bill Malugin, who's a Fox News reporter, posted this, basically debunking this entire thing. So we'll pull this up so you could see it. And if you scroll down, you can see that this is a screenshot from a TikTok video that went viral back in July of what looks like an ICE agent arresting a baby. But this was like a edited photo from this parody video. So of course, like, these things go viral, and you go back to the other pictures, you can see how it's edited. Like, it looks, oh my God, like, it's edited in just a way where it's, black and white and it's a little blurry so you can't tell, but this is the same kid in his green Crocs who's being fake arrested for a joke video, right? Furthermore, any report that I have seen about naked children being zip-tied all stem from one witness who spoke to the media, an eyewitness who claims that she heard ICE agents say, "F them kids." That hasn't been corroborated, and you can't use a screenshot from a TikTok parody video to corroborate it. You need actual evidence of that happening, and there isn't any. I'm not saying that it didn't happen, I just haven't seen evidence of it. So again, Bryan Andrews, when he's referencing these things like naked kids being zip-tied or children being arrested by ICE agents, this is just perpetuating more fear-mongering that isn't totally corroborated. You can't use other videos to further those claims. That is misinformation. And yet, the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, furthered that claim, which is also concerning. There's more concern about children being removed from apartments in the south side of Chicago. He's also referenced this incident. There was an ICE raid that happened in the south side of Chicago, an apartment building there. This was earlier in the week or a few days ago or weeks ago. And he's talking about this and how it's horrible that families are being separated. Well, these kids their parents are being arrested. So what would you like law enforcement to do? Should law enforcement just leave them alone in the apartment complex with other Tren de Aragua gang members and just leave them to fend for themselves? I mean, clearly, if you want the families to stay together, then they have to be detained together. So Also, it's just flawed logic because any criminal who has children should just be allowed to stay on the streets because they have a kid. No. Criminals who have children are also taken to jail, and then those children are either rehomed with family members or they're taken care of by like CPS or they're put into foster care or something like this, which is all horrible. It's all very tragic. But again, these are the people screaming about separating families. Well, yes, innocent children of criminals are being detained, unfortunately, but that is because their parents are criminals. You want families to stay together? They get detained together. They get deported together. You don't get a get out of jail free card because you have a kid. That's not how the law works. Now, also, Bryan Andrews is referencing that ICE raid in Chicago where authorities arrested 37 people. 36 of them were illegal aliens and one American citizen who was wanted on narcotics charges. And the reason that the apartment building was targeted wasn't because of the skin color of the people living there, but because they were suspected of having ties to the violent Tren de Aragua gang. And upon raiding that apartment building, authorities were able to remove 37 criminals from the streets. I guess liberals want these criminals to stay put. Make it make sense. You might disagree with the tactics that law enforcement is using, but you can't argue that these are the kinds of immigrants who are making America great. Because in another video on Bryan Andrews' page, he's wearing a hat that says, "Immigrants make America great." Yes, they do. Immigrants do make America great. I agree. Nobody is arguing that we should remove all immigrants, just the ones who are here illegally. And certainly the gangbangers who are dealing drugs. Now, I'm not saying you can't be a liberal country star. A lot of people in the entertainment industry are liberal, and there are liberal country music artists like Maren Morris and Casey Musgrave. So I'm not saying that you can't speak out about your political beliefs, but if you do choose to speak out, don't spread misinformation, don't encourage criminal behavior, don't lambaste law enforcement for enforcing the law, and don't call anyone who supports ICE not Christian. Because who are you to judge that? There are a lot of things that politicians do on both sides of the aisle that not every Christian is going to agree with. That doesn't mean that voting one way or another doesn't make you a Christian. That doesn't mean that supporting a politician or a political party in general doesn't make you a Christian. You don't have to co-sign everything that your party does, but having a wide open southern border that allows for women and children to be raped or trafficked into slavery or cartels, that's not Christian either. But I would never say that a Democrat is not Christian just because they vote for Democrat policies like that. You see how that's a slippery slope, and I can throw that logic back in his face? And guess what? We're all going to be judged one day, not by Bryan Andrews. He doesn't decide who gets into heaven and who doesn't, and who's good and who is not. I don't know his heart, the same way he doesn't know my heart or any of the people that he's screaming at. And I'd put money on the fact that there are Republicans and Democrats in heaven and there are Republicans and Democrats in hell, because we are not judged by our political affiliations. But you know what would be far more respectable? If he quietly used his money to donate to these groups that he cares so deeply about, instead of screaming on the internet, which does nothing, by the way, except to boost his popularity among liberals, because that's what this is all about. This is a virtue signal for attention. He's using his platform not for good, not to help anyone, but to scream into the ether. And when I went to his comment section, it's full of liberals who don't listen to country music, but they support what he's saying. So there's a bunch of people saying, I agree with what you're saying, but I hate country music. Okay. So a lot of people, I guess, will follow him for his political rants, but it might not translate to ticket sales if he's alienating the people who listen to country music. So all in all, it's a very cold take. Andy, I want your take on this as someone who has experience in the country music industry.
I don't think it's a recipe for success at all. And
right.
Hayley, you don't make any money off streams. You don't anymore. I mean, the record industry doesn't work that way. He needs to sell tickets if he's going to have a career.
Right. And I don't think that liberals are going to buy concert tickets just because he is liberal. They don't like country music. So he's getting all these liberals in his comment section riled up. And like I said, that's not going to translate to his popularity or his success in his music career. I think this is a mistake. I mean, you have every right to say what you feel, right? I'm not going to say to anyone who has a platform or anyone who's famous that they can't say anything. I mean, of course they can, but is this going to bode well for him in the future? I don't think it's going to. I just don't think it's going to. Anyway, I want to take a quick break to tell you about Genucel. Everyone, your neck tells your age, unfortunately. It tells your age. And Genucel Skincare has a neckline lift with dual peptide and MDL technology, Genucel's most advanced technology ever. And it could not only help tighten saggy skin around the neck and chin, but it could also help plump the lipophilic layers of your skin to help contour and define the neckline within minutes. Using peptides and metolactones together for the first time, it works amazingly quick, and you will see results every day. With Genucel's MDL technology, their brand new neckline lift specifically targets the delicate skin on the neck area to help you see tight, healthy, younger looking skin. Your mirror will smile back at you, or 100% of your money back, no questions asked, with their 120-day money back guarantee. Order now, and get Genucel immediate effects and get noticeable results in just minutes with your neckline lift essentials package. Right now, save over 70% off during this limited time introductory offer. No double chin, no turkey neck, no sagging neckline, because nobody needs to know your age. Genucel.com/scroll. Genucel.com/scroll. Order now and get free priority shipping. Go to Genucel.com/scroll. Genucel.com/scroll. All right, here's another Democrat that doesn't know what they're talking about when it comes to immigration. Here is Jennifer Welch. And I gave her props yesterday for interviewing Cory Booker on her show and, grilling him about AIPAC and whether or not he's bought and paid for by certain groups and taking lobbyist money. But she's back on the wrong side, on my bad side. So here, too soon. But here is Jennifer Welch, co-host of the I've Had It podcast. She did an interview and she is slamming J.D. Vance. Watch this.
He is married to a woman of Indian descent.
Yes.
He has mixed race children.
Yes.
So to all of the MAGA voters out there, if this man will not defend his wife and will not defend his kids, do you think he gives a crap about you or anything to do with you?
These people really don't understand the difference between legal and illegal immigration for whatever reason. I don't know why they struggle with this concept, but if you are here legally, you have nothing to worry about. And of course, Vice President Vance is not against immigration. He's married to an immigrant, to her point. He is against illegal immigration, as is President Trump. The president and the vice president, both married to immigrants. This just goes to show Republicans are not anti-immigration. They are anti-illegal immigration. If you come here the right way, you have no problems. I just don't understand what they're not understanding. They're thick in the head. Anyway, AOC and Bernie Sanders, they teamed up for a CNN town hall last night. So let's just play the highlights. Caitlin Collins, she asked AOC about maybe challenging Chuck Schumer for his seat. This is how they both reacted. It was a collaborative crash out between the two of them. Watch this.
But are you saying that Senator Schumer should not be worried about a primary challenge from you?
I mean,
All right.
no.
Let me jump in on this one. This is what we're
talking about.
That's exactly what we're talking about.
This is what we're
You have a
talking
country
about.
that is falling apart. We had a housing crisis, a healthcare crisis, an education crisis, massive income and wealth inequality, a corrupt campaign finance system, and the media says, "Oh, you're going to run. What are you going to run for?" Nobody cares. So run more towards
Nobody cares. It's the House Speaker and President Trump and the Vice President saying it.
All right.
Pardon?
Well, of course, they're saying it to deflect attention away from the real issues.
Exactly.
And here, let me tell you what the real issue is. Let's see if CNN talks about it. We're living in.
So Bernie Sanders, he swooped in to save the day because AOC was kind of struggling to come up with an answer to the question, which is par for the course for Democrats. But then I think Bernie Sanders used the let me just wave my hand as much as humanly possible to get them to forget what the question was.
Spirit fingers.
Like she was doing it and then he was doing it. I'm like, what am I watching? Like Dancing with the Stars? They're like, very lively bunch. They never answer the questions. That shouldn't be a hard question to answer. Maybe AOC wasn't ready to say that she's jumping in and throwing her hat in the ring, and maybe she is going to run for Chuck Schumer's Senate seat. Who knows? But certainly there are grumblings about this. There are rumors about this. So it's not a crazy question to ask, and it shouldn't be a hard question to answer. But, anyway, this is the Democrat Party. These are their heavy hitters. None of them can answer questions. But AOC misspoke a bunch. She also said that we need air that's drinkable. Watch this.
We're sick of talking about these horse races, and we're sick of leaders who only want to spend their time talking about that instead of talking about real issues that affect our lives. Instead of talking about healthcare, instead of talking about wages, instead of talking about having air that's drinkable, air that's breathable and water that's drinkable. And it is honestly astonishing to me that the Speaker of the House.
So I wanted to play that video. I know it's like a shitty video and it's someone filming their TV screen, but it was the full context. I wanted you to see that she did just stumble on her words. She meant to say air that's breathable, water that's drinkable. But, I saw on X, like everyone was just sharing the 3 seconds of her saying, we need air that's drinkable. So, everyone misspeaks every once in a while, but then she misspoke again. Okay. Here she is saying that Deloitte, the accounting firm, they just caught a random stray because AOC blamed them for setting rivers on fire. Watch this.
Rivers in rural areas were on fire because of corporations poisoning the people who lived in those areas. Poor middle-class communities getting poisoned and dumped on by corporations like Deloitte and 3M, pouring chemicals into these places. And they want to call it a Democratic priority.
So Deloitte's not dumping chemicals anywhere. They're an accounting firm. They're not responsible for this. She meant DuPont. And DuPont has released toxic chemicals into rivers, so it's important to blame the right people if you're going to play the blame game. And it got me thinking, what is the purpose of this town hall? Just to point fingers? Is it to raise their, they're certainly notable enough, but to raise their notoriety ahead of maybe the midterms? I don't know if they're just throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. I don't know. But politicians are all over cable news networks. And I don't want to see their faces anymore, left or right. So long as the government is shut down, as far as I'm concerned, you are unavailable to do a town hall or even a 5-minute media hit. They're all over cable news. And this government shutdown is 100% preventable. It's totally ridiculous that people are losing pay over something that's preventable. And I know that they're going to get back pay, and President Trump teased that some rich guy, maybe Elon Musk, I don't know, is going to pay the salaries of people who are losing pay right now because of the government shutdown. But why can't they get stuff done by a deadline? They know when the government is going to shut down. So shouldn't they work through the night to get a solution passed by the deadline, which was 2 weeks ago? Like any other job has a deadline and people are held to it. And if they don't meet it, they are reprimanded or they get fired. So why can't we hold our government officials to that same standard? I can't be the only person who doesn't want to see a member of Congress anywhere on TV until the shutdown is over. I get that members of the media want to interview members of Congress about the shutdown. I get that. They want to get the soundbite. They want the interview. And the politicians give them those sound bites in interviews because they want to be on the record slamming Republicans. They want to be on the record blaming Democrats. Doesn't matter what side you're on, they're all doing it. But I don't think that any of them should be on TV until this is all figured out. If media organizations want to get the scoop, they should reach out to the communications directors, the chiefs of staff, and anyone working in those offices to get the scoop on what's going on. But if you are in Congress, I think your ass needs to be in your office, shut the door, don't be on CNN, don't be on Fox, don't be anywhere, work and get a deal done. I don't understand it. I literally have no interest in hearing the blame game. Do your jobs. And so long as a deal cannot be made, I blame everyone. It's on all of them. But if we got anything out of last night's town hall with AOC and Bernie Sanders, we got this.
Republicans have been appealing to audiences, especially young people like myself, online using social media. Why does Republican messaging on social media seem so much more effective than Democratic messaging, and what can we do about it?
Well, that's a great question. I think the Republicans are effective They have learned a lot about social media. And by the way, it doesn't hurt that their friends own all of the major social media platforms.
Listen, anything to bring back Sombrero Gate. I did think that it was a very funny question from this seemingly young, maybe liberal voter saying, you know, Republicans are doing a really good job on social media. And he says, yes, they have learned how to use social media, which is just very funny. The left can't meme. And they can't take a joke either. And you know what? The White House keeps delivering on the meme front, and I love it. I absolutely love it. Also, Senator Mitch McConnell collapsed today. Maybe he was about to answer the question. I don't know. Maybe he was trying to dodge the question, but he did collapse when a reporter was asking him a question about ICE. So watch this.
My name is Stella. I want to ask, do you support ICE taking working people off the streets and kidnapping them?
Uh-oh. Down he goes. You know, I feel for him in that he's an old man. This is sad. You know, I'm glad he's okay. But I don't want to see any more of this. He's fallen multiple times. He like buffers in real time. You know, he's had those freezing fits where he just like freezes. I don't know what's going on. But Mitch McConnell has already announced his retirement. But he will be in office until January of 2027. He's just not seeking re-election. But he's going to be in there for a long time still. That is a long time from now. And politicians need to do better, and their families need to do better and have better judgment about whether or not they can still serve this nation. We said this with Joe Biden and Jill Biden, that Dr. Jill should have known that Joe Biden was not mentally or physically fit to run the country. He was not physically or mentally fit enough to run for re-election. Everyone could see it, but for whatever reason, maybe greed, corruption, who knows, they pushed Joe Biden back into the spotlight until they realized, oh shoot, he's really bad. He's not going to win this election. It shouldn't be about whether or not you can win. So if you can win, you should still run. You should be able to have people around you who you trust and people who you love who can say, hey, it's time to throw in the towel. I believe in term limits wholeheartedly. You should not be able to serve in Congress for life. It is corrupt. It is a corrupt get-rich scheme that is painted as selfless public service, and it's not. There's no reason why we should be electing people well into their 80s. He's 83, which is controversial to say, right? Because we have a president who's 79, but he is a young 79. And that's why I don't necessarily believe in an age cap because, you know, Mitch McConnell at 83 and President Trump at 79, these are a totally different ballpark. But politicians and voters need to have better judgment about when to walk away and what these candidates are actually capable of doing. If you are too old, it is time to step away. If you're falling frequently, if you're, I don't know, if you're having these neurological problems, step away. Especially when you're a senator from Kentucky. Like, it's not like, you know, we're fearful of losing Mitch McConnell's seat. There's another Republican who can win that seat, most likely. I'm sure we could find one. Come on. Step away and let someone younger take the reins. And I think politicians like Secretary Marco Rubio, Vice President Vance, Vivek Ramaswamy, Tulsi Gabbard, these are great examples of wonderful leadership that younger politicians can provide. Trust that you can pass the baton on to the next generation and they will not drop it. We can carry on this movement. Okay? Speaking of the younger generation, did everyone see this story about this leaked group chat between members of the GOP? Can you look up for me who exactly these people are? And Guy, could you do that for me? I forget. I think it's like the Kentucky GOP leaders or whatever it is. But you could pull up that photo that you had there. These are photos of some of the leaked group chat messages. And someone, Peter Junta, says, "Great, I love Hitler." Other very racist messages, the N-word, calling black people the watermelon people, carving watermelon. I mean, this is like pretty vile stuff, right? I think that anyone should be able to see this. And just because they're Republicans, you can say this is not representative of all young Republicans. And, a lot of the rhetoric around this, especially on the right side of the aisle, is, these are just like edgy messages. Okay, I guess some of them are edgy, but others are totally vile and racist, and we should be able to call them out. I will say that all of these people look like they're inbred, by the way, and maybe that's the explanation. I mean, this guy down there, he looks like a lesbian, a fat lesbian. I'm just going to say it. I know I'm supposed to be, be the bigger person, be the better person. Sorry. This is not what young GOP is. I'm sorry. They're just not representative. I know a lot of people who are young in this movement. They do not act like that. We're trying to make America hot again and healthy again. We're trying to make America great again. This is not it, okay? But Vice President Vance was asked to condemn these messages. He was asked about this, and here's what he had to say, and I actually really like what he had to say. So watch this.
Focusing on what kids are saying in a group chat, grow up. I'm sorry. Focus on the real issues. Don't focus on what kids say in group chats. But there's another angle to this that I just have to be honest about. I mean, I'm like an old guy at this point. I'm 41 years old. I have 3 kids. I grew up in a different world, right? Where not most of the stupid things that I did when I was a teenager and a young adult, they're not on the internet. Like, I'm going to tell my kids, especially my boys, don't put things on the internet. Like, be careful with what you post. If you put something in a group chat, assume that some scumbag is going to leak it in an effort to try to cause you harm or cause your family harm. But the reality is that kids do stupid things, especially young boys. They tell edgy, offensive jokes. Like, that's what kids do. And I really don't want us to grow up in a country where a kid telling a stupid joke, telling a very offensive stupid joke, is cause to ruin their lives. And at some point, we're all going to have to say, enough of this BS. We're not going to allow the worst moment in a 21-year-old's group chat to ruin a kid's life for the rest of time.
Totally agree. And you all know how I feel about cancel culture. I'm completely anti-cancel culture. I'm anti-boycott. I don't think that people's private text messages should be used to ruin their lives. But, we can call this out when we see it. Like, these text messages are gross. I'll say it. The text messages are gross. However, we can't also be the speech police. But let's hold Republicans and Democrats to the same standard. We can't just defend bad behavior when it happens on our side and then call on Democrats to condemn it when it's on them. And a lot of people are comparing these text messages with the text message scandal surrounding Jay Jones, the Virginia Attorney General candidate on the Democrat side. And, Jay Jones was tweeting that his Republican colleague, right, should die. He's like Hitler. His kids are fascists. I mean, these are also disgusting text messages. So I think this is first of all, let me just say that there's a difference between Jay Jones, a Democrat, and none of the Democrats are condemning what he said, by the way. And this is someone who's an adult, like a grown adult, saying these things, and he's running for political office. So there's a difference between Jay Jones and these Republican 20-year-olds who were sending stupid text messages. So I just want to say that. I'm not saying that these are completely equal situations. I think Jay Jones is certainly worse. But I think it's an easy win for us to say wishing violence on anyone is wrong, and that shouldn't be celebrated. So when Jay Jones does it, Democrats should also call out that violent rhetoric. And then in these text messages, when that girl, you could pull it up again. I think the girl said something like, let's burn them to the ground or something like that. So let's just call it out, right? When people are saying vile things, just call it out. That's all. All right, let's get into some tactical detail with Scott Bryson. Welcome to Nightly Scroll. I can't hear him. But if we could get some audio, I would love to get our segment back on the track because we didn't do the segment last week. So I'm excited to get you back because we have a lot of things that I want to get to. But first thing that you sent over to me that I want to get to is the Wichita, Kansas abduction. There was a woman who was caught on what looks like a Ring camera who was abducted by a man. And even the FBI is now involved in this, and they want help from the public to identify these people. So let's take a look at this video first, and then we can break down what we're looking at here.
Okay.
So that's a very hard watch because you can hear that woman screaming for her life, which is what you're supposed to do, right? You're supposed to make a scene. You're supposed to scream. But unfortunately, she was kind of dragged over to where there are cars. And I watched a news report on this earlier where it seems like she was dragged into a car. You can't see it on the video, but it's assumed that she was maybe dragged into a car. A car was waiting. So what's the best course of action here?
Yeah. First of all, can you hear me now, Hayley?
I can, yes.
Okay, good.
Perfect.
It's good to be back. I missed you guys last week, but yeah. So obviously, again, this video is hard to watch. She did the best she could. She did absolutely nothing wrong. She's just trying to get into her home, minding her own business. The one thing I think that it's easier said than done, especially from the cheap seats, if she could maybe just lower her center of gravity. She did scream. That was really good. The guy had to drop on her. There wasn't much she could do at that point. She used her voice. Hopefully someone in the house, it sounded to me like she was saying a man's name. I don't know who she was screaming for, but she was screaming bloody murder. I would just recommend, if you, God forbid, you find yourself in this situation, lower your center of gravity. She sort of just instinctively looked to me like she sort of shuffled her feet sort of to help him. She wasn't trying to help him.
Right.
She wasn't trying to abduct herself. But like, you have to assume the worst. You're going to get kidnapped, raped, sex trafficked, murdered, whatever the case may be. You have to do everything in your power. I know we talked about this a few weeks ago with you in here. Take your fingernails, ladies, and gouge. Start going for those eyeballs. You know, go for the private area. Go for the family jewels. I mean, it's easier said than done because every situation's a little different. He had to drop on her. In this particular case, it wasn't like she had much of a chance. You know, what you could do is you could potentially stage something outside at your front door. We talked about this one time, like you could get a baseball bat. Baseball bats are sort of big. So you could go with like a child's t-ball bat who weighs like 12 ounces. You could swing that thing with one arm. You could put an old golf club outside. If someone steals a $10 golf club, who cares? But that's a weapon you could use if you were in fact able to get to it. We've seen several of these incidences over the time. Sometimes the lady has a chance and sometimes she does. And it's just really horrible.
Yeah, it is horrible. You know, when I used to work for Sean Hannity, and he's trained in MMA. And I remember he used to tell me, because we would finish work late. So I was heading home late, commuting late. And he said, use your fingernails. He said, it's quite easy to take someone's eyeball out. And that always shocked me. But he was like, you can pluck people's eyeballs out pretty easily. And I was always like, what? Like, that's so gross to think about, like pulling someone's eyeball out. But that certainly helps you. It gives you an upper hand if you take the eyeballs out of the person trying to abduct you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So,
yeah, you know, I know Sean's an MMA guy. You know, there's jiu-jitsu is very popular. There's another art called Krav Maga. I would recommend your audience, ladies, men too, but check into one of those two. Those are very good. Krav Maga and jiu-jitsu. There's other things out there. I'm not trying to promote one or the other, but those are, most fights or abductions end up on the ground anyway.
Right.
So those two skill sets are going to help you the most, I believe.
All right, well, there's another situation. This is another Ring camera video that we can play, but I want to go through and I want people to pay attention to what this husband is asking of his wife and what the wife ends up doing in this dire situation. So watch this.
Serious? This right here? No? You fucking serious? Off our goddamn property. Get in the house! Get in the house!
And it looks like, so just for people who are listening and not watching, there is a man, and you can't see him at first, but the husband walks out the front door to go confront someone who apparently peed on their property near their front porch. And so the husband goes out to confront the guy, and the wife follows him. And it looks like they get into, it's off camera, but maybe some kind of a scuffle where it starts getting more intense. And, you know, the husband is calling out to his wife, get back inside, get back inside. And, you know, I think it's an instinct to want to go follow, right? You want to go follow, you want to go see what's happening, especially if you're going to call 911, you want to know what's going on. But in this situation, isn't it much better to get to safety? I mean, thankfully, the husband and wife made it inside before, but the guy came back and it looked like he had somewhat of a knife or a weapon in his hand.
Yeah. It's funny. This happened, something similar, not quite as drastic, happened to us about 20 years ago when we lived in Virginia. An individual showed up on our doorstep and was saying crazy stuff. And I told my wife, I said, call 911. And she's like, what's wrong? I'm like, just there's a time and a place. And I'm not trying to make fun of my wife, because we've talked about that ad nauseum, joking about it and things like that. But like, there's a time and a place. And some people are a little bit more inquisitive than others.
Right.
But like, just trust your partner, trust the person you're with. If someone's saying, hey, I need you to call 911, then this man didn't say that perhaps.
Right.
But the best thing to do, you know, these cell phones are amazing. Go ahead and dial 911, and you don't have to hit the green dot yet, right? If you think it's going to escalate to that, but you're not really sure, go ahead and have it primed up. And then if you need to hit the button, you hit the button. Or worst case scenario is go ahead and call 911. Right. I've been a cop for 30 years. We go to all kinds of calls, and all you have to do is say, hey, there's a suspicious person out here. Can you please send the police? And if it checks out to be nothing, it checks out to be nothing. But I'd rather be safe than sorry.
100%. I was just thinking that it's better to call and then just say, sorry for calling. It turned out to be nothing, rather than, I mean, who knows? And I think maybe in the moment, you know, the wife is following her husband because she wants to see what's happening. But I mean, you got to stay inside and keep yourself safe and leave it to the man to go out there and confront someone. But you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're both going to get hurt and then no one can call 911. So yeah, that is good. Right. Good advice there. But you also sent me another video that you found on Reddit. And this was a cashier who was armed and ready when someone else came into this convenience store with a gun trying to do harm. Maybe it was a robbery type situation, but this guy was armed and ready. So let's play that. So no sound on this. It's just CCTV footage, but you can see the cashier there. And this guy comes up and he's got a hood on, he's got a mask on, and he looks kind of sketchy. His hands are in his pockets, so you can assume that maybe he has a weapon. And you can't see what they're saying, but the cashier has a gun and he is also ready. And then now you see it. This guy is maybe asking for money in the cashier. You can't tell. But he's got his hand in his pocket. And then the cashier uses his firearm to get the guy to go away. So, I mean, I would think that if you are a cashier at a gas station or another kind of convenience store that is open all night long, best to be armed and ready, right?
Yeah. I love this video. This gentleman did an amazing job. We talk about the color codes of awareness on here pretty much every week. This man was in condition yellow. I mean, he was where he needed to be. He wasn't super paranoid. He wasn't over the top. He was very calm. I liked his demeanor. He was engaged. We can't hear the audio, but he was engaged in conversation. In police work, we call that verbal judo. You have to be able to keep the comps. You know, we want to de-escalate the situation. He's not a law enforcement officer, but he was still doing his very best to de-escalate, and he did a great job. He kind of used some of the cash register or some things to sort of bladed himself off where the guy couldn't see as well. And so that sort of gave him a chance to get to his firearm. He probably, based on what I just witnessed, he was probably justified in shooting the guy. Thank God he didn't do that. I mean, I think he would have probably been justified. You know, that would be determined in a court of law, of course. But he did an amazing job. That's what we're talking about. The reason I sent you that was because that's a prime example of a person being in condition yellow. I know a lot of times we're talking to the women in your audience, but it's not just women, it's men too, right? And so this man came in, he was basically looked like it was a robbery, and the guy, you know, he fought back, you know, so to speak, and it worked out. No one likes to be on the business end of a pistol, I can promise you that. So I think this guy did a great job.
Yeah, and to your point earlier about him being so calm, this looks like someone who knew exactly what to do in this moment. It was a tense moment, potentially very tense. It could have escalated to something much worse, and thankfully it didn't. But he seemed very calm. He knew to get the firearm somewhere where he could grab it. He was prepared. It looks like this is someone who has maybe practiced this routine once or twice, which you should do.
Yes.
So yeah, all in all, I'm very impressed with this situation. So that is great. And like you said, great example of condition yellow. I want to talk to you also about Charlotte, North Carolina, because we saw recently the unfortunate stabbing death of the Ukrainian refugee Irina Zarutska on the light rail. And it was a story that totally swept the nation and gripped the nation. And this is not an isolated incident. This is stuff that happens in red states. It happens in blue states. It happens all over the country. And you can't move your way out of crime, right? You always have to be head on a swivel if you're on public transportation or something like this. So I'm not saying this to say that, if you move to North Carolina or Florida or Texas, you're never going to have to worry about crime. I mean, this stuff happens all the time. And the Fraternal Order of Police, they are now calling for more security on the Charlotte area transit system, which is called CATS. And they said that there is a heightened safety concern, obviously after the stabbing on the light rail. But they are saying, call in the National Guard. We do need this. And we're seeing this massive crime crackdown with President Trump at the helm, where he is sending military. But also, when we're talking about the Fraternal Order of Police, this is something that they also want to do. They want to have more security on the transit system. So is this feasible? With it being so difficult to recruit police officers now, is it feasible? Because I always say, in a perfect world, we should have a police officer or an armed security guard at every door, at a school, at every door, at a place of worship, and certainly on public transportation. I have said this story multiple times on this show, so I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I have seen very violent situations take place on public transit, and there's no police down there. There's just no police. This was in New York City, but how feasible is it to have police on public transit? Because in a perfect world, I'd love to see them on every bus, every subway car, but that's just not probably realistic, right?
Yeah, no, I think all those points are very valid. I think what people have to do is they have to swallow their pride a little bit. If you go back to 2020, January 6th, the forbidden day of, whatever that was, President Trump tried to send in the National Guard. These mayors and these city council people, they thumb their nose at it. A lot of times these chiefs of police or the police departments or the sheriff's offices, they want the help. But the mayor has to, acquiesce a little bit. And side note, the chief of police in Charlotte, he's close to retirement now. His name is Johnny Jennings. I played football with him at Appalachian State University. He's an amazing human being. He's been a cop for over 30 years. I think he's joined the police department in 1992. He went up through the ranks. He is not the problem. His troops are not the problem. It's the politicians who muddy the waters. And you've got to get out of your own way. You got to put politics aside. It doesn't matter, right or left, Democrat or Republican. We have a problem. How can we best fix it? And if the National Guard is an option, bring them in. That's not sustainable into perpetuity, but it could be a short-term fix, right? But to your point, you have to put it in your budget. You have to come up with the money to fund a new department like the Transit Authority, right? And it's not New York City. I realize Charlotte, North Carolina is the Queen City. It's the biggest city in North Carolina, but it's not New York. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have a transit authority. I think we talk about this a lot on here too. What's your appetite for risk? And the answer is zero. One murder is too many. And that light rail has been a disaster from Jump Street. My daughter used to live down there. I've told you that before. 3 years ago when she was living down in that part of town, she's like, I don't take the light rail. And that was 3 years ago. So this is a problem that's been going on for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Best to keep your head on a swivel. We got to stay in just alert mode at all times because, we hope that politicians will make the right decisions, to make us all safer, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Red state, blue state, we're seeing a lot of, defund the police movements. And like you said, it falls on the shoulders of a lot of these Democrat politicians, mayors and whatnot, and DAs who they let criminals back out on the street and things like that. So this really runs pretty deep. So best to just stay alert in the meantime, because we can't rely on politicians to make good decisions most of the time. But I want to move now into some more fun topics. Well, fun in that these are prank calls that end up wasting police resources. So I'll just preface that by saying, it's all fun and games until we waste police resources. But police are now warning against this prank that people are playing on their loved ones, where they are going to ChatGPT. They're taking a picture of their kitchen, of their bedroom, of their front door, other places in the home, and then they're asking ChatGPT to put a homeless man in the photos. So the fake homeless man is being superimposed into real pictures of their house. So, for example, I take a picture of my front door. I say, hey, ChatGPT, can you put a homeless man there? And then I'm texting my mom or my dad, and I'm saying, hey, this guy says that he knows you. What do I do? And then people are getting these text messages and they're reacting. So here's an example of one of those videos, and then we'll get into what police officers are saying about it. So it says, homeless man prank on my dad. He's saying this guy says he knows you. The dad says, no, I don't know him. What does he want? So then she replies with a photo of the homeless man on the couch. Dad is calling 3 times. Pick up the phone. I don't know this man. Hello. Then the son, I think it's the son, sends another picture of the homeless man going through the fridge. Now the dad's calling 7 times. Pick up the phone. Are you getting my calls? Now the homeless man is in the bathroom, and it says, hey, he wanted to brush his teeth. Is it okay if he uses your toothbrush? Now the dad's calling 13 times. No, don't use my toothbrush. So it just escalates. It's all fun and games, right? You're sending a picture of a homeless man sleeping in your bed. Any parent would probably freak out. Well, here's what Yonkers Police Department, what they're saying in New York. They are saying that this prank, this is, contributing to a few calls, 911 calls, and they're saying officers are responding. They are using lights and sirens to get to what they think is a real intruder, only to then realize that, it's just a joke. And the police office or the police department there in Yonkers is saying it's not just a waste of resources, it's a real safety risk for officers who are responding and for the family members of the home if our officers get there before the prank is revealed and rush into the home to apprehend this intruder that doesn't exist. So what's your reaction to this prank?
Yeah. Well, I love a good joke. My wife says I'm her 4th child, and police officers by and large have very dark sense of humor. So it's probably pretty funny at first, but then it gets gray. There's some black and white areas, right? And then it gets gray. And so you have to be careful, because especially when you start, number one, you are wasting resources, number one. But more importantly, if these guys are running code, when you run lights and sirens, it's called running code. If you're running code 2 to a call, then you are speeding, you are running emergency traffic, but you also possibly blowing through a stoplight or running through a stop sign. And you could, the police officers know how to drive, obviously, but you're putting people at risk for no reason, and you don't know that until it's too late. So it's a fine line between the jokes and reality. And I will say this too: I saw one where a guy had done this with it. He had a maid
I saw this
in his
too.
house. And that guy took his life into his own hands with his wife blew his phone up. I'm like, brother, you're crazy.
Right. Yes. To extrapolate that further for people who haven't seen this is basically like the homeless AI trend, but flipped. So men are sending pictures of a fake maid in like a hot outfit to their wife. Like, hey, this woman came over and said that you hired her to clean the house.
Oh,
and, anyway, to your point, an angry wife could also be very scary to deal with.
No, thank you.
Yeah. But here's another example of a Halloween display that is also contributing to 911 calls. Let's play this one.
Despite flames appearing to tear through both stories and smoke billowing from the windows, Tonight, the owners of this South Carolina home are begging their neighbors to stop calling 911.
I think they got about 30 calls the first year, and I think they may have had 3 or 4 this year.
That's because this fiery scene is all just a Halloween display created by Sam Lee and his fiancee Amanda Pett.
So probably 99% has been positive. We do have a 1% that, don't like it, and that's understandable. They're entitled to their opinion, but we do it for the community.
The couple from just outside Greenville go big every Halloween. Locals know their home as that must-see house. But this year, the couple outdoing themselves with a mixture of special and practical effects. So convincing, they knew to alert the local fire department. First responders glad to be in on it, but the calls are coming in.
Does this in any way take away from resources in a smaller fire department?
No. Granted, we're lucky we're a block and a half from where the house is. So regardless, if somebody calls, we're going to go.
So that's the thing, right? This year they realized, so after last year when they got 30 calls to the fire department or 911, right? Now they realized, okay, this year they have already alerted the fire department that they might get fake calls about this house, or not fake calls, real calls. Neighbors who are concerned about this house that looks very real. It looks like it is on fire with the smoke and all that, the special effects. This looks very, very real. And again, people are concerned. Like, these are members of the community, they're neighbors who think maybe they drive by or they see the smoke and they think, oh my gosh, there's someone in there. There's probably pets in there. Let me jump into action and call 911. And then for these firefighters to now know, all right, this is the address. We got a phone call about smoke billowing out of the windows and it looks like it's on fire. Both stories on fire. But they still have to go and check, because what if this Halloween display actually sets their house on fire? You don't know. They've got a bunch of lights in there. I mean, you can't just take people's word for it. I mean, what if this actually goes wrong?
Yeah, you can't not go. When the call comes in, you go, because the 911 dispatcher has no idea. When I first saw this video today, I actually thought it was real. I'm like, well, what is this? What is this? And I realized, holy cow, this is next level prankery. Again, I think good intentions, but it's like, okay, I think they probably learned. I'm hoping they learned their lesson. I don't know if they did or not. They got 30 calls last year. So I think as long as they're I don't suggest you do this, by the way, but like at least now the fire department's on notice, and the neighbors are probably on notice. The problem is people driving by the street that don't live there think, right, holy cow, this thing's on fire. And the problem is, the truth of the matter is, if you call 911, the police or the fire, the medics or whoever, they're going to go. And you are just absolutely, it's a revolving door of nonsense. And I think maybe they could just tone it down a little bit. I know producer Guy thought it was really good. But I think maybe just tone it down a little bit. It's a little over the top.
It is over the top, and Halloween is my favorite holiday. I absolutely love Halloween. I grew up, my mom did an incredible job decorating our house. It was very spooky. Kids were crying. It was awesome. It's all in good fun, right? But with something like this, I mean, you could still be the scariest house on the block and not, fake set your house on fire, right? There's a lot of things that you could do. You could do a spooky graveyard. You could do, the zombies crawling around in your front yard. You could do a lot. And I think it's best to maybe tone it down. I think they should have maybe learned their lesson after the first year. Hey, this caused a stir with our local fire department and police department. Maybe we shouldn't do this next year. Can the cops say, like, don't do this? Is that like, are they within their right to say that?
No, that's a really good question. It gets down to whatever the city ordinances say for that town. But like, I would just say this, if these people are listening, my wife tells me this all the time, especially when it comes to money. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. So yeah, it's kind of funny, but it's probably not the best idea. To your point, do the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, take the chain off the chainsaw, and that thing's scary. Just the chainsaw, right, in the middle of the night, that's a scary noise. Do something with zombies, do something fun with ghosts or Charlie Brown. I don't know, but I thought that was a real fire. It fooled me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was looking through the comment section, and it's really split. Like, some people think that it's funny. Some people think that it's great. It's definitely well done. You can't argue that it's not well done. But some people in the comments suggested, why don't you change the color? So it's not red and orange and yellow, but it's blue or it's purple or it's green. It can still be spooky. It can still be interesting, but it's not going to fool people that it's literally on fire. So yeah, to your point, I think maybe they should just tone it down. I think that's good advice. But Scott, tell people where they can find you and where they can follow you, because you've got a podcast, you've got great tips on social media. So plug everything.
Yeah, Scott Bryson, BTS, which stands for Beyond the Service. I was a Secret Service agent for 25 years. I survived that, and now I'm into this world, I guess. So I'm on all social media platforms at Scott Bryson, BTS.
I love it. Thank you so much for the tactical details segment. It's one of my favorites, so thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right. And then you can also follow me at Hayley Caronia on most social media platforms. I'm on X, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Truth Social. Did I miss one? Instagram. So you can follow me and catch up with me there. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. And I hope to see all of you right back here tomorrow. See you.